So, as it turns out, there is a form of collective consciousness. No, not like that. More like you have to have other people around you or you will actually go insane, and we'll talk about it. And this is a topic that actually really bothers me and has my whole life. When we are young, we start out with no experience. Remember when I said it's pretty easy to trick a 3-year-old? That's because they don't have a good understanding of what reality should be, and they rely on others around them to tell them. Turns out we do this our entire lives. Think about this. Have you ever reached for a light switch and found that there was not one there? Did you ever wonder if there was this time you ever would have noticed that it shouldn't be? Maybe, probably. Now imagine you have other people around you telling you that that light switch was always there. That's actually why gaslighting is pretty effective. Gaslighting is actually exploiting a cognitive tool that we need. Not convinced? What happens when people are in sensory deprivation chambers? When you are isolated from all your sensation, your brain is expecting something to be there, and without it coming in, it gets kind of bored, so it starts modeling it on its own, and people will see all sorts of interesting visuals. They might hear things. Interestingly enough, tinnitus has been linked to this. People who have hearing loss in particular, there's a lot of different things that can cause tinnitus. They tend to hear the same sounds as the hearing that they have lost. So if you've lost high frequencies, you'll hear that ringing. I do, all the time. Or if you've lost low frequencies, you might hear a rumble. It's thought that your brain kind of misses those sounds. They're not there, so it just makes them on its own because it's trying to fill in the gaps. This is the same principle behind the sensory deprivation chamber. Now, when we're talking about things like isolation can make people lose touch with reality. People who have been isolated for a very long period of time can hear voices. They tend to have derealization or feel as though they're not in their body. It's thought that this happens because we are constantly having to look to others to see how they are reacting to things and conversing with them so that we can remain grounded. It's also interesting to see what this will do with AI. People are more isolated than they've ever been before. But now they're relying on an artificial companion that will probably just agree with whatever you say. There have been better guardrails that have been put in place, but it's kind of a positive feedback mechanism. Madness of two, where two people amp each other up with their delusions. Yeah, that can happen with AI. But that makes sense now. If we constantly have to rely on those around us to determine what real is, what happens when they're not around? There's a darker side to this, though. As we are growing up, we base our morality on our parents first, who tell us the difference between right and wrong. But as we get older, middle school aged, it becomes our peer group, not your moral leaders, but those around you telling you if what you're doing is good or bad. If you didn't have somebody telling you that littering was wrong, do you really think you wouldn't do it? Psychologically, probably not. A peer group had to inform you of it first. Now, it's not entirely fair to say this because some groups of people end up having morality that differs from the society around them. That can become dangerous. I mean, say you're a psychopath and your morality differs from those around you. Let's just hope that morality doesn't land on very bad things. One of what I think is the biggest dangers of this is that you can socially engineer people's beliefs. AI is better at persuading people than people because when you click on a video and look at the comments, you consider those comments as more persuasive than, say, your neighbor. But most of the web traffic online, most of the articles, most of the content we see, it's just AI. It can be extraordinarily prolific, and you might be able to see where the problem is there. So if you do find yourself scrolling to the comments before developing an opinion, just be aware of it. That person may not actually be an AI, but they may have been influenced by AI, or they might just be, a robot. People with an understanding and an ability to use these concepts to shift public opinion are probably not the people you want to be doing that. Actually, I'm not sure we want anyone to do that, but it did work for smoking. There was a concerted effort to portray smoking as dirty, and it worked. For the most part, people stopped smoking. The other side of that is, of course, what happens when your views on reality do not conform. It can make people go a little bit crazy, or they may just deny the evidence in front of them. Either one is possible. What happens when people's views on how reality should work does not conform? Well, there can be a few outcomes. One outcome is that people can just deny reality, deny the evidence in front of them, and that seems a lot more reasonable when all of your peers are saying the same thing, doesn't it? Another is that you can accept the new information, and this goes a lot better if it's being said by an authority figure. I actually had a roommate that studied that, political science. Or maybe they just keep investigating. But for the most part, it's difficult to accept a new reality when it does not conform to your mental framework, because if your mental framework is wrong, what else are you wrong about? And that's a lot to handle. I can't change people's views on anything. If you have a belief and you feel strongly about it, you're probably just going to stick to it no matter what anyone says. Now, if I could give the world any advice, it would be to figure out what you believe in. What are the moral principles that you abide by? And then look around you. Figure out if what you believe in is actually following those moral principles or not. And if you find that it's not, just investigate further and maybe consider changing your viewpoints. My viewpoints on the world are just try to do as little harm as possible. I just want to tip the scales. My presence on this planet does a little more good than bad. If you've enjoyed this, follow for more.